Are you looking for plants that are easy to keep, but then you see that all those plants need soil? That was how it used to be with me. Keep watching to find out 10 plants that won't require a soil substrate. So the first plant on this list is Anubias. Anubias is a super beginner-friendly plant and requires little care. Anubias is also a rhizome plant, which means that it has a rhizome and you can't bury it in the substrate. The only issue I've ever had with this plant is that it is very prone to getting algae growth on its leaves. If there's too much algae, its growth would be stopped and it could die. So you always need to control algae growth. You can do this by turning the light on for lesser hours a day, or you could use some tall algae resilient plants to help block some of the light. The easiest method is to buy big Anubias at the store. Reason for that is because the bigger the plant, the more resilient it is to algae. For example, my previous Anubias had almost completely died due to algae, so then I bought a much larger Anubias. Sure enough, the new plant didn't have a single speckle of algae. The second plant on this list is Java Fern, and just like Anubias, Java Fern is also a rhizome plant. And just like any other rhizome plants, you can't bury it in the substrate. But even with these similarities, they still look pretty different from each other. Anubias has leaves that grow more sideways, while Java Fern has leaves that are more straight and grows towards the top. Java Fern is a very hardy beginner plant and grows really well with good care. It's recommended to tie the Java Fern with driftwood, but I like to let it sit and let the roots anchor themselves. Either way will work fine. I have noticed that this plant tends to easily melt sometimes. This has been the case for many other fish keepers too. After lots of trial and error, I believe I have found the main reason. Java Fern does not like being moved around often, and that is something a lot of us do. Moving it around too often could cause the plant to feel not as good, which causes it to melt. Overall, this is a very hardy plant, easy to care for, and I recommend it for beginners. The third plant on this list is Frogbit. Now, Frogbit is one of those plants that grow really well when the tank is free from algae. The reason is because once the algae grows on its roots, it starts to die. Frogbit is a floating plant and it grows at the surface. A very important thing I learned is that it's best to not keep this floating plant with other floating plants. This is because the other floaters will outcompete Frogbit for nutrients in the water column. Nevertheless, this is a very good plant and is great for taking out ammonia and nitrates. I recommend buying a group of them so you have a lot to start with. Now the next plant is going to be a pretty cool one, and that is Java Moss. The reason I say this plant is interesting is because it doesn't have roots, but rather stays sitting on the substrate. You can also glue it to rocks and driftwood, and what ends up happening is that the moss will grow over the thing that it's on. It's most popular to use it on driftwood, and it will attach itself over time. Here's an example of what it looks like on an aquascape. Java moss is very popular in aquascapes, so many times you will see Java moss being used. This plant is also great if you have baby fish, and the moss provides some hiding shelter. So the fourth plant on this list is Java moss. Now moving on to the fifth plant, which is the Bucephalandra, or Boost plant for short. Now, Bucephalandra is also a rhizome plant just like Java Fern and Anubias, and it's pretty easy to keep. It doesn't require a substrate, like you could tie it up on a driftwood, or you could just let it sit and let the roots anchor itself. I would mention that they typically grow to a much smaller size than Anubias or Java Fern. It also grows very slow, and it only grows 2 to 3 leaves every month. It will look very good as a foreground plant in an aquascape. The sixth plant on this list is hornwort. Hornwort is a popular stem plant that many people keep, but this plant is very different from other stem plants. The reason they're different is because hornwort doesn't actually grow roots. So I would say that this plant is probably 60% stem and 40% floating. These plants grow really well in outdoor tubs, and I find them to grow best when kept floated. The problem with keeping them in the substrate is that the bottom parts will rot and die because of not enough light. Also because they just don't like being that way. Anyways, hornwort is pretty good overall and is one of the fastest growing plants I've ever seen, but fast growth also has its downsides. Normally, if an aquarium plant grows very fast, it dies just as fast. This is especially true with hornwort. I went from having some to a ton and to now, which is barely any. Reasons for hornwort dying could be planting it in the substrate, too little light, and sudden changes in tank parameters. In my experience, these are a very great plant, but you just need to be careful with it. Hornwort also has very needle-like leaves, which means that goldfish won't bother to eat it. I made a whole video on the best plants to keep with goldfish. The link is above. Anyways, so the 6th plant on this list is hornwort. The 7th plant on this list is alodia. Very beautiful plant, they don't cost much and you could find them just about anywhere. I bought mine from Petco and it was pretty good. Most people put these plants in outdoor tubs. I like to use them for breeding fish. Provides a lot of shelter and baby fish will use it to hide. It grows well without soil and could be floated. They do grow really fast. Mine grew many inches in just a few days. If it grew a lot, it could create a jungly look to your tank and it will look very good. If you're looking for a plant that will completely cover your tank without you doing anything, then that might be duckweed. Duckweed is a popular floating plant that grows so fast, once you get it in your tank, there's basically no getting out. You've probably seen them cover ponds and lakes, and they really just never disappear once they get somewhere. Duckweed doesn't need any special care and could grow in everything from low light to high light, and it's actually more difficult to get duckweed not to grow. Basically in any water parameters, these plants will do fine. I found that many fish like to eat them, so now you've got an extra food source. And so the 8th plant on this list is duckweed. Moving on to the 9th plant, we have guppy grass. Here you can actually see a baby antler hiding. They're really great for breeding fish. You can keep them floated or you could put them in the substrate. You can add this to an aquascape and it will look so good without you doing anything. Guppy grass is one of my favorite plants because they're so easy to care for, amazing for your tank, and I haven't had a single problem keeping them. These plants grow very fast. You don't need a certain type of light. For example, mine even grows well with a hood. Now on to the 10th and final plant, which is salvinia. This is my #1 favorite aquarium floating plant. It grows very fast, and not as fast as duckweed, but still very fast. It looks very nice and also is great at taking out ammonia and nitrates. To me, this is the perfect floating plant and I highly recommend it for beginners. In my experience, they do like it when you dose liquid fertilizer because they'll get more nutrients from the water column. Which one of these plants is your favorite? Leave it down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more videos about fish and fish keeping. Thanks again, see you next time.